In the 4th year of our engagement, Albert adopted a canary. He intercepted all my resources to support her. That night, after losing the Best Actress crown, a reporter asked me about my future plans. I smiled faintly, took off the ring, and said, "The first thing I will do is to break off the engagement." As soon as I finished speaking, the front row's Albert lost his composure. Panicking, he blocked my way backstage, nearly hoarse with desperation. "Chloe, do you not want me anymore?" Chapter 01. The guest lounge of the 14th Sakura Film Festival. I was resting with my eyes closed. The agent Helen burst in urgently. "The evening gown you liked has been taken by Roxana." I leaned back in my seat, saying nothing. Seeing my lack of response, Helen couldn't help but angrily say, "Since Roxana debuted, all your endorsement resources have been snatched away by her. Now she won't even spare the haute couture gowns. Who is this awful woman's sugar daddy? Daring to be so arrogant?" The last sentence was directed at me. I nervously curled my fingertips and slowly opened my eyes. My voice was a bit hoarse. "Helen, you know her." In her astonished gaze, I uttered a name. "Albert. Law family prince. The executive president of the largest entertainment company in the country. He is also my fiancé." Helen's first reaction was disbelief. "How is that possible? You have been dating since high school. A long-distance relationship for 10 years. Engaged for 4 years. Why would he?" Her words came to an abrupt halt. She must have realized the problem. 14 years. A full 14 years. It has been far too long. Long enough for the beauty I once took pride in to gradually fade. Long enough for love and novelty to be worn away in the daily quarrels. Then, Roxana appeared. Chapter 02. Helen didn't speak anymore. I gazed out the window, somewhat lost in thought. In a daze, I recalled the day Albert laid everything bare to me. He hadn't returned to our home for a long time then. Sitting on the sofa, looking out of place, the coffee table was filled with photos taken by the private detective. In the picture, he and Roxana are kissing passionately on the streets of Paris, oblivious to the world around them. I asked him, "Aren't you going to explain?" He loosened his tie with one hand, lit a cigarette, and cast a detached glance in my direction. Unfazed by the questioning, he maintained the calm composure of someone in a position of power. "It's just as you see it. No tearing. No arguing. I just admitted it." I desperately held back the tremor in my throat, preventing even a hint of a sob from escaping. "Why? Why cheat? Why treat me this way?" Albert exhaled a puff of smoke, his fingertip brushing over the corners of my eyes, where a few faint lines were visible. His words slithered into my ears like a venomous snake, rampaging through the ruins of my heart. "Chloe, you are no longer young." I stood frozen, unsure of how to react. "Yes, I am nearly 30, and his little canary is just over 20. Albert pinched the cigarette, then suddenly thought of something, reached out and pulled me into his arms, his fingertips skillfully unbuttoning my shirt, trailing down my neck. Then he stopped and let out a sneer. "Moreover, now when I touch you, it feels like I'm touching myself." A wave of intense shame surged up from the base of my spine, and I could no longer control my emotions. Raising my hand to slap Albert across the face. "Bastard." He turned his head away from my slap, his face cold, and stormed out. I lay on the sofa in disarray, numbly staring at the ceiling. In my mind, memories of many years ago surfaced unexpectedly, when 16-year-old Albert stood under the kapok tree, blushing as he confessed his feelings to me. "Chloe, I will always be in love with you. But now, he says he has no feelings for me." Albert, your sincerity, how quickly things change. Chapter 03. Pulling myself away from the memories. I blinked my stinging eyes. I gathered my emotions and walked out of the lounge. Before the film festival opened, there was a stretch of red carpet time. I lowered my head to sign on the signature board, and out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Roxana making her grand entrance. She wore a moonlight-colored long dress, shimmering with sequins, resembling the galaxy, drawing everyone's attention. In contrast, I was wearing the most ordinary casual outfit because my high-end dress was snatched away. The comparison was devastating. I lost terribly, but that wasn't the worst part. The more painful thing was that at this moment, the man beside her was my fiancé. Albert looked up and happened to meet my gaze. After a few seconds, he subtly looked away. Roxana pulled at his sleeve and quietly asked, "Albert, your fiancé is here too. Should we go say hello?" I heard Albert's indifferent response. "There's no need." He held Roxana's hand and brushed past me, his expression desolate, as if we were strangers. The sadness that had been suppressed surged back, my nose tinged with bitterness, and I nearly cried. Helen blocked the nearby camera and whispered, "Someone is filming. Watch your expressions." But it was too late. The media had already posted a photo of my reddened eyes online. Hashtag Chloe's gaze hashtag. Hashtag Chloe's sense of brokenness hashtag. Hashtag Chloe recently broke up. Right? Hashtag. These few keywords have gone viral. Netizens said. When I saw Albert and Roxana's eyes, there was a sense of melancholy mixed with heartache, a feeling of brokenness. Undoubtedly there must be unspeakable secrets behind it. You guessed quite accurately. Soon, after walking the red carpet, Roxana tweeted, "Online debunking. Please don't overinterpret. This is the first time I walked the red carpet with my boyfriend, and we were a bit too intimate in our actions. Chloe, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel bad. Don't be too sad. The comments section is in chaos, laughing to death. The old witch feels sad seeing couples show off their love so much. The person upstairs has a really foul mouth. Beauty Chloe is only 30. Her prime is still very long. Yes, yes, yes. Even retouching can't hide the crow's feet. Unlike us, Roxana, young and beautiful, the dignified law always falls at her feet. Roxana, go for it. The Best Actress award tonight is yours for the taking, and you'll ascend to the upper class. Driving Chloe, that old woman, crazy. My relationship with Albert has not been made public within the circle. Only Helen knows. She was furious and, upon entering the inner area, shouted, "Boyfriend? To know you are the other woman and still choose to be the other woman is truly shameless." A few meters away, Roxana's body stiffened. Not just her. Albert also heard it. He turned his head to look at me, his eyes cold, his deep voice suppressing his anger. "Chloe, your person spoke too harshly. Apologize." Chapter 04. My heart sank like it was filled with cold lead. Being with Albert for 14 years, he has never been willing to lose his temper with me. The first time was last year. I was filming in Hengdian, practicing wire work, and accidentally fell from a height. I felt a dull pain in my lower abdomen, and after being rushed to the hospital, I discovered that I had miscarried. Albert was very angry as a result. He found a lawyer overnight, wanting to support me and hold all the wire workers accountable. I advised him to let it go. He held me tightly, gently rubbing the top of my head. "Chloe, this is our first child. I am truly heartbroken." I knew he was heartbroken. For the sake of the perfect shooting effect, I didn't use a stunt double. After the accident, Albert couldn't bear to blame me and could only vent his anger on others. On the day of my discharge, he went to help me with the payment, only to unexpectedly discover that I had previously scheduled an abortion. Albert was on the verge of breaking down. He silently threw the list at my face, his usually gentle and indulgent voice cold as ice. "Chloe." He stared at me intensely, utterly disappointed. "If nothing had gone wrong, would you have hidden it from me and gone through with the abortion?" In the midst of the silence, I nodded. I grew up in a single-parent family. My mother died during childbirth, and my father has always hated me for it. Indulging in domestic violence, alcoholism, and gambling, he has never loved me, and I have never felt any familial affection. I don't know what parents who truly love their children are like, nor do I know how to become such a parent. So, I don't want to use my child as a trial and error. But Albert doesn't understand. He grew up in love, with a happy and harmonious family, and cannot comprehend my thoughts. Every time I try to explain to him, it always turns into an argument. By the end of the argument, we are both exhausted. During the time we were both calm, Albert moved into the company, not coming home or contacting me. It wasn't long before he signed a new artist, Roxana. She looks a lot like me when I was young. If I had to say what's different, it's probably that she is luckier than I was, having a pair of loving parents. A friend said that Albert is quite attentive to Roxana and advised me to be cautious. So I went to the company. Through the glass door, I saw Roxana holding a colleague's child, smiling and murmuring, "The baby is so cute. Who wouldn't like a baby?" Albert stood quietly by, gazing at her. Perhaps he himself wasn't even aware of how gentle his gaze towards Roxana was. In that moment, my heart trembled violently. It felt as if I was about to lose something important, nearly fleeing in panic. On the way home, I trembled as I contacted a private investigator. When I received that photo of them kissing, I crouched on the ground for a long time, finally realizing that Albert really had fallen for Roxana. He doesn't love me anymore. You don't want me anymore. This relationship, once the pride of my youth, now seems to have vanished in the torrent of time. Unrecognizable. Chapter 05. This is Albert's second time getting angry at me. For another woman. I suppressed the emotions in my eyes and smiled as I asked, "Why apologize? Doesn't Roxana know the score?" Faced with such blunt words, Roxana's lips trembled, her delicate body swayed, and crystal tears streamed down her face. She choked up and said softly, "Chloe, do you hate me because I stole your fiancé? But I don't think I'm in the wrong. Love doesn't have a first come, first served rule. It's the one who isn't loved that is the third party. I really have no shame left." I opened my mouth, just about to teach her the principles of being a good person. The lights in the venue suddenly dimmed, and the award ceremony officially began as the host, holding the cue cards, walked onto the stage. Before taking a seat, Albert said to Roxana, "Don't worry, she can't compete with you." I suddenly had a bad feeling. Sure enough, the next second, the host reveals the winner of this year's Best Actress award is Roxana. The final note fell, and I closed my eyes in despair. Helen, with a face full of indignation, took advantage of the camera not being on her and gritted her teeth to curse Albert. "Are you crazy? You actually bought an award for Roxana. Don't you know how much effort Chloe put in for this award? To support her little lover. You intercepted her resources and took away her award. She is your fiancé." After all, Albert did not respond. His thin lips curled into a cold arc. "Regret it? Chloe? Terminate his child, losing his love and protection. Do you regret it?" I actually want to laugh, but as I move my lips, a tear falls down. A sharp-eyed reporter captured this moment, approaching me with a camera, microphone extended to my lips. "Ms. Wu, it's clear that you're not in a good mood right now. After missing out on the Best Actress crown, what are your plans for the future?" Helen wanted to refuse the interview, but I stopped her. I took a deep breath, faced the camera, and forced a pale smile. Some things should come to an end, in front of everyone. I took off the engagement ring and returned it to Albert. The first thing, cancel the engagement. As soon as I finished speaking, the front row's Albert lost his composure. Panicking, he asked, each word deliberate, almost through gritted teeth. "What did you say?" Chapter 06. You could hear a pin drop in the room. No one was paying attention to Roxana on stage anymore. The guests and reporters at the table, including the host on stage, all turned their attention to me and Albert. The essence of humanity is to watch the drama unfold. Moreover, it was the parties involved who revealed the news. I held up the ring and patiently repeated it once more. "Albert, let's annul the engagement." He didn't respond. His hands hanging by his side clenched so tightly that the veins bulged and his knuckles turned white. Countless flashbulbs were going off in our direction. The media rushed to report the shocking gossip that La Famille Sr already has a fiancé, yet is entangled with the new Best Actress. Albert was annoyed, suddenly lifting his foot to kick over a chair, growling out loud, "Stop taking pictures. Damn it! Whoever dares to leak a single photo will end their career right here." The reporters didn't dare to provoke this ancestor and quickly turned off their cameras. I have no interest in watching him throw a tantrum, so I placed the ring on the table beside me and turned to leave. I didn't expect that. Albert caught up with me. He blocked my way backstage, nearly hoarse with desperation. "Chloe, do you not want me anymore? Who is it that doesn't want whom? Albert? The one who betrayed is clearly you. Feeling wronged, I furrowed my brows slightly and took a step back, distancing myself from him. He was stung by my actions, his lips unconsciously quivering a few times, unable to hide his inner confusion. God knows how long it has been since I last saw Albert looking so flustered. He pulled the ring from his suit pocket, the one I had just taken off, and commanded, "Put it on." The tone was laced with a barely perceptible tremor. I did not move. Albert waited for a few seconds, patiently explained, and firmly placed the engagement ring back on my ring finger. He softly called my nickname, just like in the early days of our romance. Chloe. As long as you bow your head and admit that the appointment for the abortion was your mistake, I promise. I will cut ties with Roxana immediately. Come back to me, and we can have another child. Those endorsements and honors still belong to you. I was stunned for a long time, suddenly feeling that it was somewhat absurd. It turns out he did all of this just to force me to back down. I know that the crux of our issue is the child, yet there are so many ways to communicate, and he chose the most hurtful one: infidelity. Thinking of this, I brushed aside Albert's hand, letting the ring fall to the ground, making a clattering sound. If you want children, you can find Roxana to have them. After all, I'm not young anymore, am I? The boomerang struck Albert in the back. His face turned pale. That was not my true feelings. I forced a smile and interrupted. It doesn't matter anymore. Some words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. The hurtful phrases are like sharp nails, piercing deeply into my heart. Even if they are pulled out, the scars remain. It's like once a person has a rift, they can never return to the way things were before. Chapter 07. The air stagnated for a moment. Albert's eyes flashed with a hint of pain. His jawline was tense, his whole body rigid, yet his voice softened as he asked me, "Chloe, after 14 years of our relationship, can you really bear to give it up?" I trembled slightly at the lashes of my eyes. Albert has been a constant presence throughout my youth. Letting go is actually quite difficult. My nails dug into my palm. I forced myself to calm down and spoke 2 words in a steady tone. Letting go. Upon hearing my response, Albert's face drained of color. I met his incredulous gaze, my voice soft yet firm. So, this is it. From the moment he kissed Roxana, from the moment he said touching me felt like touching himself, I knew clearly, Albert has changed. He is no longer the boy who was once filled with thoughts of me. In those countless moments when he made me sad and brought me to tears, I repeatedly brewed this sentence in my heart. Now, I have finally spoken it out loud. Yet, I am not as sad as I imagined. Instead, I feel a sense of relief. I remember 4 years ago, on our anniversary, Albert and I were curled up on the sofa watching Ode to Joy. Just as the scene played where Chu Xiao and Andy discussed their views on love, she said that being in a relationship doesn't necessarily get better with time. It sounds frightening to think of it in years, but essentially, it's like a fragile piece of paper that can be easily torn. I felt flustered and rushed into Albert's arms, foolishly asking, "What about us? We have been together for 10 years. Will the ending also be like drawing water with a bamboo basket? All in vain?" Albert held me tightly and comforted me, saying, "Silly girl, we are different. I want to marry you and take you home as my wife." The next day, he proposed to me. "Chloe, I won't fall for anyone else besides you. In this lifetime, I must have you." At that time, I really believed it. With a heart full of passion, I loved him like a moth to a flame. So when it came time to pull away, it hurt so much. It can hurt again, but I still have to let go. Albert, upon hearing this, his expression suddenly darkened, and his gaze grew increasingly cold. The high and mighty prince humbly seeks peace, yet I repeatedly refused. He had long since lost his patience. Seeing that I showed no signs of changing my mind, Albert grabbed my wrist, pinned me against the wall, and shouted at me in a warning tone, "Chloe, stop messing around. You publicly annulled our engagement, causing me to lose face. I didn't hold it against you, but instead lowered myself to comfort you. What more do you want?" He seemed genuinely furious, with anger boiling in his eyes, but I remained indifferent. just coldly watching him. I want to break up. Humph. Albert suddenly smiled, but despite the smile, his expression was very cold. It seems that all these years, I have spoiled you. The colorful lights shone on his face, and in those amber eyes, a hint of mockery was clearly reflected. Do you really think I have no way to deal with you? The hand gripping my wrist tightened even more. I winced in pain. Albert turned a deaf ear, leaning close to my ear and threatening me. You can try to leave me. I guarantee that within half a month, you will come back crying and begging for me. You really are confident. I tugged at the corners of my mouth and smiled gently. That day will never come. It will never happen. Albert seemed taken aback by my resoluteness, his expression showing a hint of astonishment. In the moment he was dazed. I used all my strength to break free from his shackles and continued to move forward. The intense gaze behind me followed closely, as if it wanted to burn a hole through me, but my steps did not falter, not even turning my head. Albert, I once liked you, and I truly liked you. Now when I say I give up, I really mean it. Chapter 08. On the way back. The car is quiet. The award ceremony has ended, and the reporters on site have been silenced. Everything about me and Albert is tightly kept under wraps. No one dares to leak a word. The internet is buzzing, and Roxana's name almost dominates the entire entertainment chart. Fans praise her as the youngest best actress in history. Passers-by marvel at her red carpet look as if a goddess has descended, and the uninformed onlookers envy her and Albert's beautiful love. Undoubtedly, tonight's Roxana is the biggest winner. Flowers and applause surrounded her all the way. Yet I have nothing. The gown, the awards, the lover, all taken away. I self-deprecatingly curled my lips, inevitably feeling a bit bitter. Helen noticed my low mood and asked the driver to stop. Before long, she presented me with a bouquet of cotton flowers she had just bought from a roadside shop, as if offering a treasure. Here, your favorite flower. I was slightly taken aback but didn't take it. Helen, I didn't win an award today. Helen disagreed. Who says you can't receive gifts if you didn't win an award? She stuffed the flowers into my arms and gently rubbed my head. You've been nominated for Best Actress after just 4 years in the industry. You're already amazing. Moreover, flowers and applause do not solely belong to the winners. We Chloe can have them too. I raised my gaze to look at her. My eyes grew warm, and a single tear slowly flowed down. When I learned that Albert had moved on, I didn't cry. When he gave the award that should have belonged to me to Roxana, I didn't cry. I didn't cry when I broke up with him either. But now, hearing Helen's comfort, my tears still can't help but fall. For every 100 moments of disappointment, there is 101 moments of being rescued by a friend's love. She pulls me out of sadness just when I need it the most. It's like a ray of sunlight breaking through a crack of complete darkness. It's warm. It's comforting. It's moving. I leaned on Helen's shoulder, almost unable to speak through my tears. She can't stand to see me sad, frantically pulling tissues from the drawer to wipe away the tears on my face. All right, Chloe. Actually leaving a bad person and cutting losses should be something to be happy about. As for that kind of consolation prize, it doesn't mean much to have it. Everyone with eyes knows who has better acting skills. Be good. Don't cry anymore. Your eyes are all swollen. Listening to Helen's calm and gentle tone, it felt like all my negative emotions were smoothed out. It's okay. It's okay that the awards are gone. And it's okay that love is gone. My life is still long, and I can start over at any time. Chapter 09. Half an hour later, I returned to my apartment. Since the breakup with Albert, I moved out of his villa. I didn't bring any luggage. Helen thoughtfully walked me to the door, reminding me to get a good night's sleep before she went downstairs. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. Around 10 o'clock at night, I was removing my makeup when the phone screen in front of the mirror suddenly lit up. Roxana updated her status. Today is the most important day of my life, and I want to share some good news with everyone. He proposed to me. The accompanying photo is a sweet selfie. The background is at Law Family Villa. The girl is wearing the nightgown I didn't take with me, and on her hand is the ring I threw away, smiling with crescent-shaped eyes. Her comment section is filled with blessings. Oh my. Tonight Roxana is thriving in both career and love. She's simply a winner in life. Woo-woo. I'm really so envious of her. Holding the trophy. Becoming his wife. Law is really so romantic. The youngest Best Actress heir of the entertainment group in history. I'm dying from the ship. And it's another day of screaming for fairy tale love. My haters are mingling in it. Family. Am I the only one curious? If the old witch Chloe sees Roxana's tweet, will she be furious? Of course. Ha ha ha. The red carpet was overshadowed. And I didn't win any awards. If I were Chloe, I would hide at home and cry. Never going out again. That night, I was trending online as the control group for Roxana. Being mocked. The sincerity of netizens' blessings for her and Albert is matched only by the depth of their malice towards me. Even though I did nothing wrong, I still endured endless humiliation and insults. Helen urgently contacted PR, wanting to remove the negative trending search about me. The other party tactfully advised us not to waste our efforts, because this is Albert's handiwork. At his behest, all the endorsements I had left were abruptly terminated. And then, coincidentally, I was offered an olive branch by Roxana. Even the film that was already halfway through shooting was notified to change personnel at the last minute. Termination letters came pouring in. This caused my already precarious career to collapse like a house of cards. I gasped, my back stiff against the wall. It felt as if someone had reached out and tightened their grip around my neck. My mind buzzing. I began to suffocate. Just when I was on the brink of collapse, I received a phone call. Albert's light laughter spilled from the receiver, carrying a hint of determination. Chloe, you see, this is the price of leaving me. Do you dare to mention breaking off the engagement again? I never expected that Albert would use such a despicable method to force me to reconcile. He wants to wear down my spirit, to make me crawl at his feet like a docile cat, wagging my tail in submission. But I refuse to give him what he wants. I calmly said, I dare. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. What followed was a low, confused murmur mixed with a hint of anger in the questioning. Think carefully before you answer. Even if you disregard your career, don't you care about the title of Mrs. Law? I proposed to Roxana. Let her stay in your room, wear your engagement ring, and you're not jealous at all? I don't understand. At this point, what is the significance of these questions? In my view, when two people are together, they cherish each other, and when they part, they wish each other well. This is the greatest respect for a relationship. It could never have ended up like this. I tightened my grip on my phone, sighed, and tried my best to maintain the last shred of dignity. Albert, I made myself very clear. We are done. For the sake of the love we once had, let's part on good terms. I don't know which words touched Albert's sore spot. His emotions became increasingly agitated, and the violence in his tone could not be suppressed. You say we loved each other. Then tell me, why was your first reaction to get rid of my child? Ask yourself honestly, do you really love me? Albert seems to have forgotten. A long time ago, he asked me the same question. At that time, I patiently reassured him. Of course I love you. Of course I love you, Albert, but you are not me. You will never know how painful it is to have a father who is an alcoholic kick your ribs. You won't ask me why I tremble at the sight of cylindrical objects. And you certainly won't understand why. On the day my father was driven to death by loan sharks, I felt a sense of relief. Your entire understanding of me comes solely from my statements. The thin and barren language is not enough for you to empathize. So you think I am being pretentious, that I am exaggerating. You stand on the opposite side of me, accusing me of easily giving up on the child over such a trivial matter. Actually, I also want to ask you, if a person cannot even heal themselves, how can they take on the responsibility of being a parent? Moreover, that child was unexpected. If it weren't for you taking advantage of me when I was drunk, without any precautions, and forcing your way in, how would I have gotten pregnant? But these words, I never had the chance to say. I naively thought that as long as I waited Albert to calm down, we could sit down and talk things over calmly. But as I waited and waited, I was met with photos of him kissing Roxana. How ridiculous. Chapter 10. Chloe. Speak. Albert's voice rang out again, suddenly pulling my thoughts back. I wearily pressed my forehead, not wanting to continue entangling myself. So I simply went along with his words and admitted it frankly. Yes. I don't love you. Can you let me go now? Before he could say anything, I hung up the phone. But clearly, Albert would not let me off so easily. In just 15 days, the career I had worked hard for over 4 years was destroyed in an instant. Helen did everything she could to help me secure resources. The response I received was always the same: sorry, Miss Wu, your acting is very good, but law has instructed us not to use you. I haven't given up. I've been running around trying out for roles, and in my spare time, I send messages to all the directors and producers I've worked with, asking for parts. I know the hope is slim, but I will still do my best to try, because that's just the kind of person I am. In high school, Albert confessed to me, and after I agreed to date him, I didn't neglect my studies. I worked day and night on practice questions, striving for the top of my class. In college, Albert took me to a celebrity gala. I didn't know how to taste wine and was mocked by his friends, who said a mountain chicken could never match a phoenix. I didn't show any displeasure. I immediately enrolled in courses to learn, until I could effortlessly handle wine tasting, flower arranging, and other superficial arts. After graduation, Albert proposed to me. His mother, that once famous Best Actress from the 1990s, frowned at the sight of me and bluntly said that she could never allow a woman of my humble background to marry into a wealthy family. I wasn't angry. I was just smiling and asking, what if I could be like you? What if I could be like you? To rise from the bottom, become famous across the land, gain both wealth and status, and stand proudly by his side? Albert's mother was taken aback for a moment, and when she looked at me again, the disdain in her eyes was gone, replaced instead by a hint of admiration. I also keep my promises. In 4 years since my debut, I started by playing minor roles and corpses, unafraid of hardship or exhaustion, honing my acting skills step by step. Even though I lean on Albert this big tree, I have never taken advantage of him to seek any benefits for myself. Helen often says I am a relentless worker, putting my life on the line for my job. Albert has advised me several times, saying that if it comes to it, I could give up law family and live an ordinary life with him. But I refused. I like someone, and I believe I should stand at a high place, side by side with him, not selfishly dragging him down from the clouds into the mud for my own convenience. I will never be a climbing flower that clings. I must be a kapok tree standing close to him, embodying the image of a tree alongside him. Even if we part ways now and take different paths, I still want to be a tree, a clear-headed, independent, and thriving tree. This is me. Perhaps God heard my voice. After sending out hundreds of text messages, there was finally a glimmer of response. The producer I collaborated with on the last film, feeling nostalgic, couldn't bear to see me disappear, quietly sent me a message that the genius director Oliver is back in the country and is preparing to shoot a film on the topic of domestic violence. The female lead has not yet been decided. Oliver holds a very high position in the industry, and many foreign investments are involved in his films, so Albert cannot easily intervene. I did not hesitate and immediately submitted my resume to the crew. That night, my empty inbox received an invitation letter. It was sent by Oliver. The content was very short, only a few words. I've heard a lot about you, and I am very welcoming. Chapter 11. The 20th day after breaking up with Albert, I participated in the audition for the movie Freshman. I heard that Oliver has high hopes for this work. He has put countless efforts into polishing the script and is very strict in selecting actors. In order to ensure fairness, the entire process will be conducted through a judging panel voting system. I ran into Roxana in the waiting area, completely expected. After all, this is a good pie, and everyone wants a piece of it. She saw me, tossed her hair, and deliberately showed off the diamond ring on her ring finger. Chloe, what a coincidence. You're also here to compete for the leading role? However, I advise you not to waste your time. You might not know, but those judges all know my boyfriend. The implication is that the female lead must be her. Last time at the award ceremony, She made the absurd statement that only those who are unloved are the third party. I didn't have the chance to teach her the principles of being a decent person. But today, I finally have the opportunity to fight back. I paused my hand as I flipped through the script. I stood up, looking down at her, raising an eyebrow and asking, "What's wrong? Relying on men to get ahead. And you still feel superior? If you were to openly compare acting skills with me, I might think more highly of you. But you haven't. Buying awards a while ago, and now trying to use connections to get a role. Don't you think you resemble a thief?" Roxana's face turned bright red. Her lips pressed together, seemingly wanting to argue, but I wouldn't give her that opportunity. I took out my phone, opened her platform homepage, zoomed in on that selfie, and smiled as I commented, "Wearing my pajamas, wearing my ring, and announcing it with my ex-fiancé. Roxana, it seems you are not only a thief but also keen on picking up what others have discarded." I spoke sharply, leaving no room for leniency. Roxana was trembling with anger. With no one around, she no longer bothered to pretend to be a delicate flower, glaring at me with resentment, her voice laced with fury. "Chloe, don't speak so harshly. To establish oneself in the entertainment industry, one must fight and compete. Buying awards and roles is quite normal. If you lack the ability to win the Best Actress award and can't hold on to Albert's heart, why blame me?" I couldn't help but sneer. Her mouth is truly a silver tongue. With just a few words, she completely shifted the blame onto me. I still wanted to retort her, but suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. Roxana's agent pushed the door open and said, "Roxana, how are you preparing? The audition is about to start." Roxana looked embarrassed. She was so focused on bickering with me that she hadn't even memorized her lines. It seems she'll have to rely on improvisation later. The agent comforted her, saying, "It's okay. Even if you mess up, those judges will still vote for you out of respect for law." Upon hearing this, Roxana proudly curled her lips and, as she brushed past me, didn't forget to shoulder bump me hard. "Get lost. Don't block the way." I stumbled a bit and barely steadied myself by leaning against the wall. Once they walked far away, I was left alone in the room. The early spring wind blew in through the window frame, tousling the script on the table and revealing the voice recorder pressing down on the last page of paper. I lowered my eyes and pressed the pause button. Recording complete. Roxana has a saying that is very true: to establish oneself in the entertainment industry, one must rely on competition and seizing opportunities. Just because I disdain using tricks doesn't mean I won't protect myself. After I packaged this recording and sent it to Helen, I sat down and continued to focus intently on the script, until a figure stood before me. I slowly raised my head and unexpectedly collided with a pair of deep-set eyes. The man wore a khaki trench coat, with gold-rimmed glasses, and exuded a warm fragrance, like a spring rain had just fallen, with the scent of earth, dew, and the roots and stems of grass, fresh and clear. "It's Oliver." I didn't expect him to come to the waiting area. I stumbled as I greeted him. "Director." "Hello," he hummed in response, raising his eyebrows and smiling at me, his smile like a breath of spring. "MS. Woo. It's finally nice to meet you. Finally?" Oliver's smile deepened at the corners of his lips as he nodded and explained, "I watched your films while studying abroad. Your acting is excellent. To be honest, you are the actress I most want to collaborate with right now. Being praised face-to-face by a revered director made my ears feel a bit hot. Amidst my joy, there was also a hint of worry. Oliver just returned to the country and might not know my current situation. After the Black Hot Search incident, my public image has completely collapsed. And whenever the audience mentions me, they always mockingly compare me to Roxana. In this situation, cooperate with me. It doesn't seem wise, but Oliver seems to see through my thoughts. He stepped closer, getting nearer to me, his long fingers tapping on the table, producing a rhythmic sound. "Everyone in the circle says you offended Albert and were blacklisted by the Capitol, advising me not to give you a chance to audition. But I, for one, have never bowed to Capitol. I only look at ability. If you can successfully land this role, then..." He stared into my eyes, each word pronounced with conviction. "I will help you fight your way back into the film industry." Chapter 12. I believe Oliver. He has the ability to elevate me to the pedestal of fame. In the past, anyone who played the female lead in his films would undoubtedly win the Best Actress award, without exception. Before leaving, Oliver gracefully raised his wrist, brought his index and middle fingers together, and tapped his forehead, smiling to encourage me. Good luck with the audition. I smiled back at him. It was the first genuine smile that emerged during these dark days. I don't know how many times I watched the script over and over again. And finally, a staff member called my name and took me into the studio. The big screen displayed the results of the previous round of selections. Roxana has the highest votes in the audience. The judges are all applauding for her. Only Oliver stood with his hands in his pockets, frowning, seemingly dissatisfied. Roxana seemed oblivious, holding herself like a best actress, proudly looking over at me. I smiled and gestured for her to check her phone. During her audition period, Helen retaliated tit for tat, personally contacting multiple media outlets to expose the recordings, and even enlisted several marketing accounts to stir up the narrative. So as long as Roxana opens the social media platform, she will find her name has surged to the top of the trending searches. Hashtag Roxana Watergoods Best Actress Hashtag. Hashtag Roxana relies on men to get ahead Hashtag. Hashtag Roxana buys awards and characters Hashtag. Public opinion has turned in an instant. What's going on? I even shipped the Best Actress Jiang and the Prince, but I didn't expect she was actually the mistress. Best Actress. Does she even deserve it? Buying awards to the point where everyone knows. It's truly embarrassing. Fans should stand in line to be criticized. We Roxana are not those kinds of people. The recording must be fake. That old witch is despicable for using such lowly tactics. A dog's mouth can't spit out ivory. If the brain-dead fans are sick, they should go get treatment. Those words were spoken by your own idol. So what does it have to do with others? No wonder Chloe inexplicably burst into tears on the red carpet last time. If I were her, I would definitely tear Roxana's face apart in public. In less than 10 minutes, Roxana's social media platform was completely overwhelmed, with millions of abusive comments flooding in, and she lost countless followers. Netizens hate being made a fool of the most. Not only did they wipe out her circle, but they also indignantly dug up her dirt, wanting her to be kicked out of the entertainment industry. Roxana had never seen such a scene, pointing at me and hysterically questioning, "It's you. You did it, right?" I didn't say anything. In a corner where no one could see, I mouthed the words to her. "Isn't it obvious? You idiot?" She was instantly enraged, lunging at me and pulling my hair in frustration. A bony hand pressed down on her shoulder. Oliver stood in a protective stance, separating Roxana and shielding me behind him, his expression cold as he uttered 4 words. "What are you going crazy for?" Then he signaled the bodyguards to please Roxana leave, though it was called a request. It was actually an expulsion. I watched helplessly as the once arrogant Best Actress was rudely grabbed by the arms and thrown out the door. The judges exchanged glances and shook their heads in resignation. With such a scandal breaking out and recorded evidence, there's no way to clear her name. No matter how powerful Roxana's backing is, it will be hard for her to make a comeback. After the farce ended, the studio returned to silence. Oliver and the judges sat in the audience, their expressions focused as they watched my performance. The film Freshman tells the story of a female protagonist from a low background who, after suffering domestic violence from her father and betrayal from her lover, undergoes transformation and is reborn from the ashes, ultimately shining in the field she loves. It is very similar to my early experiences. So, no one understands better than I do how to portray the expression of extreme pain when being beaten, and how to depict the victim's fearful demeanor in front of the abuser. I close my eyes and brew my emotions. The nightmarish memories of the past entwine around me like vines, almost choking me. When the lines are spoken, I feel as if I have merged with the female lead of the film. She's using my body to interpret life, and I am using her soul to vent my pain. The performance was so immersive that I only realized, when I opened my eyes, that Oliver was looking at me with eyes full of amazement and admiration. Even the judges who usually got along with Albert put aside their prejudices at this moment and followed their hearts to vote for me. The contract was signed on the spot. Just as the last stroke of the signature was completed, I pinched the palm of my hand hard. After confirming that this wasn't a dream, tears were about to fall. Helen was overwhelmed with joy, her voice unable to hide her sobs. It's so good. After so many days of hardship, we Chloe have finally reaped the rewards. During those hardest and most bitter days, she was always by my side. She never gave up on me. I sniffled and sincerely thanked Helen. But the person I should be most grateful to is Oliver. I quickly walked up to him and deeply bowed. Director, thank you for giving me this opportunity. He gentlemanly helped me up. Don't mention it. I told you. You are the actress I most want to work with. Oliver's voice was clean and clear, with a slightly husky quality, reminiscent of the gentle moisture of spring. Incredibly alluring. When I left the set, night had already fallen. Helen, the person sent to pick me up, hasn't arrived yet. I was waiting by the roadside with the contract, bored and scrolling through my phone. My DMs exploded. Some people comforted me, wishing me happiness after the breakup, while others apologized for having criticized me in the past. This is just fine. The reversal of public opinion has greatly benefited my career. I smiled as I turned off my phone screen. Suddenly a car's headlights shone over. I thought the driver had arrived. But when the window rolled down, it revealed Albert's face. He looked quite haggard, as if he hadn't slept well in a long time. A cigarette burned halfway at my fingertips, with thin blue smoke swirling around. Under the hazy moonlight, he waved at me. Chloe, come here. Chapter 13. I didn't expect Albert to show up here. Roxana is now infamous, and the Law family group has also been dragged into the trending searches. With their stock plummeting at a time like this, he should be busy holding a board meeting to discuss how to quell public opinion. Why do you have time to find me? I pretended not to hear and turned to walk in the opposite direction. Albert got out of the car first, forcefully wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me into his embrace, with his chin resting on my shoulder. Have you been angry with me all this time since we haven't seen each other? Do you know that for 20 days? 474 hours. I have thought of you every minute, every second. I admit, I shouldn't have ruined your career, but you retaliated today, so we're even now, okay? He held me tightly, as if I were a treasure that had been lost and found again. Let's make up, Chloe. I can't live without you. His voice was hoarse and deep, his warm lips lingering and brushing against my ear, kissing my neck softly and repeatedly. To an outsider, this scene must appear tender and deeply affectionate, but all I feel is disgust. I pushed him away calmly, my expression indifferent and my tone distant. Albert, please have some self-respect. We have already broken up, and Roxana is your current fiancée. Albert's eyes dimmed slightly, his tongue pressed against his cheek as he smiled self-deprecatingly. She's just a substitute. What kind of fiancé is that? I helped her debut, indulged her in stealing your resources, deliberately defended her in front of you, and proposed to her just to provoke you. I wanted to make you jealous, to create a sense of crisis in you, and then change your mind to agree to have a child for me. That's all. Really, the person I have loved from the beginning to the end is you. He stared at my eyes with great anticipation, hoping to find some turbulence within them, even if just a trace. But unfortunately, there was none. I looked at him coldly and asked just one question. Have you two slept together? He was speechless. He averted his gaze, dodging and hesitating, too afraid to answer or look at me. The answer was clear as day. I sneered. This is what you call loving me? It's truly disgusting. Disgusting. These two words landed on Albert. His eyes instantly turned red, as if an endless sorrow was spreading. His throat moved slightly, yet he couldn't utter a single word. He looked completely like a heartbroken puppy. In the past, I would have felt an immense pain for him. But now, I didn't even glance at him and just walked away. The plan of self-pity failed. He chased after me in a few steps, cornering me against the wall, stubbornly locking eyes with me, and pressed. Am I disgusting? What about you, Chloe? If it weren't for your so-called bullshit psychological shadow, how could we have ended up at this point? Damn psychological shadow. This is how he described my childhood trauma. I looked up at the night sky. The clouds were gathering, as if a heavy rain was about to fall. It wasn't going to work to keep holding on, so I might as well take this opportunity to speak my mind. I led him into a deserted alley, took off my only shirt, revealing the string of letters tattooed on my lower back. Wask. Only love, Albert. You smiled and asked me at that time why I had it tattooed in this position. Was it to add more romance during intimacy? I blushed and didn't say anything, but today I can tell you, because every part of my body has suffered various fractures except for my spine. It hurts every time it rains, and all this pain is thanks to my dear father. Albert looked shocked. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, accustomed to a life of luxury, and his family elders spoiled him. In his eyes, parents loving their children is instinctual. The domestic violence I speak of is merely small scuffles and not a big deal. How could it possibly be serious enough to cause psychological trauma? I recounted one incident after another. When I was 8, he got drunk and went on a rampage, hitting my forehead with a wine bottle. When I was 10 years old, he became addicted to gambling, racked up a huge debt, and in a bad mood, he forcibly broke my finger. When I was 12 years old, on the anniversary of my mother's death, he cursed me for being hard-headed, claiming I caused his wife's death, and he broke my leg with a stick. When I was 14 years old, loan sharks came to collect, and he pushed me to a group of thugs, letting them do whatever they wanted with me as a way to pay off the debt. I desperately escaped and called the police. He was locked up for a few days, but when he got out, he became even more violent. And before committing suicide by jumping off a building, he kicked my ribs until they broke. I continuously described the details. By the end, I was already in tears. It turns out that revealing old wounds feels like being roasted over a fire, with boiling oil searing the heart. It hurts. It really hurts too much. Albert was taken aback, his pupils dilating sharply. After 14 years of love, I had never described my past so vividly in front of him. He could barely stand, his face a picture of defeat, and his dry eye sockets shimmered with a hint of tears. It was only at this moment that he understood just how much damage my family of origin had caused me. Unfortunately, it's too late. Chapter 14. That night, Albert stared at Chloe's departing figure. His heart ached so much that he could hardly breathe. How foolish and obtuse could he be? Not even realizing that the woman he loved most had endured so much suffering. The spring night was chilly, and a thunderclap rolled across the sky. The lightning flashed like daylight, and the rain poured down in torrents. Albert did not leave. He slumped down along the crumbling wall in despair. Falling to the ground, he buried his head deep in the crook of his arm, maintaining that position without moving. As the rain blurred his vision, his thoughts gradually became filled with memories that crept in through the cracks. He remembered Chloe's miscarriage day, the day they had their first argument, when he lashed out at her with the harshest and most hurtful words, calling her heartless. Chloe was clearly on the verge of tears, yet she was still desperately holding back her tears, patiently trying to explain to him. But when he heard her mention words like domestic violence, psychological trauma, and not wanting to have children for now, he could only feel it was absurd. Wasn't it just a few beatings during childhood? Who hasn't been through that? That's really pretentious. He impatiently waved his hand to interrupt, momentarily losing control and accidentally pushed Chloe a bit. As she fell to the ground, her eyes were filled with disbelief. Her forehead hit the corner of the table, oozing bright red blood. Albert panicked. "Chloe, are you okay?" "I didn't mean to." Halfway through his sentence, he fell silent again, because he saw Chloe instinctively retreat under the table, hunching her shoulders and raising her arms to block his touch. It's just very strange. Similar things have happened more than once. Previously, he took her to play golf, and with a perfectly normal iron club, she just glanced at it and inexplicably started shaking. But Albert never asked her why. To be precise, he didn't care. What he liked was the way she thrived in the sun, never giving up even in adversity. She strived for excellence in her studies and worked hard to climb up after debuting. She would do her best in everything. As for her past, he had no interest in exploring it at all. Even if she talked about it, he couldn't empathize. It is difficult for a precious prince, who has stood at the top of the pyramid since childhood and possesses everything, to understand the hardships of the world. He and Chloe, one who is unwilling to ask questions, and even if asked, does not believe, have reached a point where the hesitation to speak has become so frequent that the thought of speaking up has vanished. Perhaps their relationship began to crumble from this moment on. After that, Roxana burst into his life. The girl in her 20s, with a face full of collagen, full of laughter and anger, is more vibrant than the 30-year-old Chloe. The most important thing is that she really likes children. So, Albert briefly developed feelings for her. Just think about it. With a young and beautiful girl who resembles your first love appearing before you every day, how could you possibly remain indifferent? However, this fleeting emotion is nothing compared to 14 years of love. It is truly insignificant. In his heart, Chloe is the only true love of his life. All other distractions can be cast aside. So when the girl pretended to sprain her ankle for the 4th time and fell into his arms, he could no longer tolerate it. Roxana, don't do this. I have a fiancé. Roxana softly replied, Albert, I don't care. I just want to stay by your side. Anything that Chloe is unwilling to do, I am willing to do. Including having children for you. She, with a face that was 7 parts similar to Chloe, spoke this line with such temptation. In that moment, he even forgot to refuse. Roxana seized the opportunity to tiptoe and lightly place a kiss on his lips. Not far away, someone pressed the shutter. When the photo was sent back home, he was questioned about the reason for the affair. He originally wanted to explain, to seek forgiveness, but suddenly thought of that abortion appointment slip, and of their child who had died before birth. Anger surged within him, and he said a lot of nonsensical things to upset her. He said, "You are no longer young." He also said, "Touching you now feels like touching myself." He was her closest lover, and naturally knew exactly where to stab with the knife to hurt the most. Chloe stared at him in a daze, the light in her eyes gradually fading away. He pretended not to see, stormed out, but deep down he had already regretted it. He sat at the bottom of the building smoking all night, hoping to wait until his emotions stabilized before going back to apologize. But when dawn broke, he saw her looking exquisite, as if nothing had happened, continuing to film and attend her appointments as usual. Albert felt that fire inside him reignite. Why was he here engaging in deep self-reflection while she remained carefree and continued to work? Does she really love him? In the following months, he almost retaliated by intercepting her resources, allowing Roxana to publicly hype their relationship. Yes, he did it on purpose, deliberately provoking her, forcing her to back down. But Chloe refused to give in. The conflict between them intensified, and friends couldn't stand by any longer, advising him, "Albert, that's enough. Don't go too far. What if you really hurt your sister-in-law's feelings and she leaves you?" Albert smiled slightly. He thought to himself, it won't happen. Chloe had been with him since she was 16, and now at 30, she had invested her best years into him. With such a high sunk cost, how could she bear to let go? He was so certain that at the award ceremony, Chloe publicly announced the end of their engagement. He was stunned for several seconds before he reacted. He watched her take off the ring she once treasured the most, tossing it onto the table carelessly like trash. "Albert, let's annul the engagement." As the last note fell, his eyes widened in anguish, as if something had brutally shattered his heart, and his breath caught in that instant. He instinctively chased after her, pleading with her not to leave. It was no use. He tried everything, using his career to threaten her into changing her mind. It was still no use. During the days they were apart, Albert didn't sleep a single peaceful night. Even with Roxana, this substitute lying beside him, he would still wake up in a panic in the middle of the night. Until today, he could no longer hold it in. He really wanted Chloe, and wanted to see her. When he arrived at the filming location, Roxana's call for help happened to come in. "Albert, have you seen the trending topics online? Chloe is really ruthless, wanting to step on me to rise to power. I am truly at my wit's end. I beg you to consider our past relationship and help me one last time, okay?" Why is it said to be the last time? Because a few days ago, he had already cut ties with Roxana. Helping her bribe the judges to secure the lead role in the movie Freshman was his parting gift. But no one expected that Chloe would dominate with her strength. Roxana cried like a rain-soaked pear blossom, sobbing and begging him for help. After all, she was a canary with whom he had shared intimate moments, and his heart softened as he was about to agree. But suddenly, he saw the end of the road. The person he missed day and night, with a smile on her lips, was humming a tune as she walked towards him. Albert hadn't seen Chloe so happy in a long time. He propped his chin on his hand and watched her for a while before casually speaking to Roxana. "My fiancé is messing with you, so just obediently accept it." Then, he put down his phone and eagerly appeared in front of Chloe. He wanted to tell her that he couldn't lose her and didn't want to lose her, as long as she was willing to come back. He didn't care about having children anymore. But Chloe no longer gave him a chance. Chapter 15. The rain kept pouring harder. I went back, took a hot shower, and after drying my hair, I sat at my desk and seriously wrote character sketches and notes, but my phone in my pocket kept vibrating. I glanced at the caller ID. It was the friend who had reminded me to pay attention to Roxana, who was also Albert's brother. He said anxiously, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry to disturb you so late. Albert has been kneeling downstairs, wanting to apologize to you. No matter how much I persuade him, he refuses to leave. It's raining too heavily. If he stays out any longer, he will definitely get sick." I was silent for 2 seconds, give him the phone. When the thin window curtain was pulled open, the soaking wet Albert seemed to sense something and looked up. I locked eyes with him in the warm, dry room. He tilted his face up, his back slightly bent, his expression extremely flat, yet it conveyed a deep-seated sense of helplessness, completely different from his usual arrogant demeanor. After answering the phone, he cautiously called out to me, "Chloe." The next line is, "I'm sorry." These 3 words brought my memories back to the past. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but I was filming in a remote mountainous area with poor transportation, limited budget, scarce supplies, and the meals were mostly vegetarian. Albert video called me, and when he saw the boxed meal I was eating, his expression was displeased. "Do you really have to shoot this lousy film? Come back. I can take care of you, can't I?" I said, "No." I promised his mother that I would make a name for myself. Albert had a stern face and didn't say anything. I thought he was angry. But the next day, a private jet landed on the mountaintop helipad, its fuselage emblazoned with the prominent word "law." Thousands of boxes of fresh and expensive ingredients were delivered to the film crew. The director was laughing uncontrollably, but he was a clever person. Knowing that there is no such thing as a free lunch, he hurriedly pushed me and the other actresses into the Albert room, under the pretense of fearing that the prince would be bored, letting us keep him company for a chat. In reality, it was a selection of concubines. One of the girls was particularly bold. As soon as she stood still, she began to undress, not even sparing her underwear, stripping herself completely bare. Albert was originally standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window admiring the view, but when he turned around, his face turned pale. He smashed the wine glass and told them to get out. Only I was left alone in the room. Outside, the sound of rain was pattering. He half knelt on the ground, holding my hand and repeatedly apologizing, almost as if he wanted to dig his own eyes out. "Chloe, I'm sorry. I didn't see anything. Please don't be upset." I actually wasn't upset. At the moment he bent down and knelt, my heart ached for a moment. I never imagined he would humble himself to this extent for me. Time flows back to tonight. It's the same rainy day, the same kneeling to admit my mistakes. Yet my heart is completely unperturbed. I paused for a moment and smiled. "I do not accept your apology. Albert, it's very late. I need to rest. Can you please get out of my sight?" Albert knelt quietly, his pale lips pressed into a straight line. Hearing me tell him to leave, his drenched body trembled, and he pleaded almost desperately, "Chloe, please don't be so cruel to me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have belittled your suffering, shouldn't have taken advantage of your love to hurt you recklessly, and I definitely shouldn't have entangled myself with a substitute. But I swear, I will never do anything to hurt you again. Please." Can you forgive me just this once? As he spoke towards the end, his voice choked to the point of being inaudible. Tears fell from his face, dropping one by one onto the ground, soaking into the rainwater. I firmly refused, and then ended the conversation, saying, "That's it. I'm hanging up." I didn't pay him any more attention. I turned on Do Not Disturb mode, drew the curtains, and comfortably took a nap. The next day, I woke up to an unread message on my phone. "Helen, Chloe, you're trending again. I just found out that a resident from the same community recorded a video of Albert proposing to reconcile in the rain last night and uploaded it to online platforms, sparking heated discussions. Hashtag seeking forgiveness hashtag. Hashtag the proud son of heaven kneels for love hashtag. Yo yo yo, isn't it that you got together with Roxana? Regretting it now? This rain is falling as if it costs nothing. Mr. Law has really good physical fitness. Surprisingly not getting sick. Is the person upstairs a prophet? Indeed. They were hospitalized for pneumonia in the latter half of the night. I am a nurse at a private hospital. The scumbag deserves it. So why did he have to act recklessly from the start, only to realize after true love has left? Chloe, don't be soft-hearted and get back together, or I will look down on you. Yes. Support the beautiful sisters' independence. To satisfy the curiosity of the onlookers and to appease the fans, I logged into my account to respond personally. Thank you all for your concern. I never go back on my path. The comment section is filled with applause. Few celebrities in the domestic entertainment industry are truly alive. Most just handle rumors and gossip with indifference. I took the opposite approach and gained quite a few fans. As the buzz reached new heights, the official Weibo of the movie Freshman released my character stills. With a note, "You deserve better" at actor Chloe. The operation Under the Skin specifically noted, the boss asked me to support the female lead. Who is this boss? It goes without saying. Helen's eyes sparkled with little stars, her expression one of excitement. It's Oliver. He's so good. I just smiled and remained silent. The rain outside has already stopped. A beam of bright golden sunlight shone through the glass onto me. I am incredibly certain, from now on, I will bid farewell to the past and start a brand new life. Chapter 16. In April, when the K-pop flowers bloom, I joined the crew. The filming location for the movie is in Jiangnan, over 1,000 kilometers from the capital city, with closed set shooting. Aside from relevant staff, all other outsiders are strictly refused entry. But during that time, I still received a confession essay every now and then. I didn't need to think to know who wrote it. I didn't read it. I just packed it all up and threw it in the trash. The makeup artist, bought off by Albert, chuckled and said, "Chloe, at least open it and take a look." Law, still recovering from pneumonia, forced himself to be discharged and traveled a long way to Jiangnan, just to be a little closer to you. It's quite pitiful, really. I tilted my head and looked at her, my face showing little expression. She continued on her own, actually. Law has already broken up with Roxana. If you can forgive him, he will definitely love and pamper you even more than before. A broken mirror can be made whole again. What a beautiful ending that would be. I have always been kind to the people in the team and never made things difficult for them. But this time I couldn't help but feel a bit angry. But I still suppressed it and politely informed her, starting tomorrow, you won't need to be with the group anymore. After changing the makeup artist, those crooked handwritten letters never appeared again. The surroundings have become much quieter, and I immersed myself in the filming without distraction. 4 months later, Freshman officially wrapped up. Oliver and I were invited to participate in an interview program as a promotional warm-up for the movie. Major media outlets are vying to ask questions, with the content largely similar and centered around the main storyline of the film. But in the second half, suddenly a young girl raised a microphone and sharply asked me, "Ms. Wu, since your debut, you have won no awards. Yet a melodramatic love triangle has become widely known. People online are criticizing Roxana as the mistress. But as far as I know, your relationship with Law had already encountered problems before she appeared, right? You don't want to have children, which has led Law to feel disheartened and seek true love elsewhere. You are also at fault. Yet you continue to guide public opinion to attack Roxana. Don't you think you owe her an apology?" I frowned and looked at her. The girl was wearing an intern reporter's uniform, with a name tag from Southern Media University pinned to her chest. If I remember correctly, Roxana also graduated from this school. This is to seek justice for her senior. I cleared my throat and said seriously, I don't quite understand your logic. When a couple on the verge of legal marriage has conflicts and their relationship falls apart, does that mean others can step in and proclaim that true love is innocent? She retorted, at least on a moral level. There is no need to be criticized so harshly. Also, I would like to ask Miss Wu, why are you unwilling to take on the social responsibilities of women and bear the next generation? Is it due to too many abortions, physical conditions that don't allow it? Or is there some psychological issue? Her personal targeting is too intense, attracting the attention of her peers. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered a program accident and should be urgently halted. Helen negotiated with the director, requesting to replace that aggressive reporter. However, involving celebrity scandals and the increasingly heated topic of women's childbirth, the organizers insisted on making me answer for the sake of publicity. The hand I hid in my sleeve trembled slightly. I wasn't prepared to expose my wounds again in front of so many people. Just feeling at a loss, the person beside me suddenly stood up. Oliver took the microphone proactively, coming to my rescue, this female journalist. First of all, the reproductive rights that women possess are not obligations, but choices. They have the right to decide whether to bring the next generation into the world, without interference from others. Secondly, your question is both presumptuous and cruel, and you speculate and slander the LGBTQ+ community with the utmost malice. We reserve the right to pursue further action. The girl's face turned pale and flushed alternately. She probably didn't expect that her intention to help her friend Roxana clear her name would ultimately put herself at risk of imprisonment. When it comes to one's own interests, it is very difficult to speak up for others, so she ran away in disgrace. After the interview, I walked out of the recording studio side by side with Oliver. I hadn't fully recovered from that incident, and while descending the stairs, I accidentally missed a step. A pair of hands steadied me at my waist. Chloe, be careful. This person has, for some time now, stopped calling me by my full name. The distance is just too close. When those light brown eyes looked at me, my mind was filled with his words. A woman's reproductive rights are not an obligation, but a choice. I have tossed and turned on countless sleepless nights, pondering whether I made the wrong decision. But today, Oliver told me, women have the right to use their wombs freely, without needing others to point fingers. The grievances accumulated over the years can no longer be suppressed. Tears rolled down like beads from a broken string. Oliver asked with concern, "Why are you crying? Did you twist your ankle?" After he finished speaking, he crouched down, trying to lift my ankle to examine it closely. But suddenly, a familiar figure rushed out from around the corner. Albert picked me up around the waist, his gaze towards Oliver full of hostility. "Don't touch my person." It had been 4 months since we last met, and he had lost a lot of weight. It seemed that the pneumonia had really taken a toll on him. Oliver raised an eyebrow. "Your person? Has Law really developed dementia, or is he just not online during his hospital stay? Now the whole world knows. You've been dumped." Albert was poked at a painful spot, instantly filled with anger, his eyes radiating coldness. "Shut up. What the hell do you think you are? Daring to talk back to me? Since the prince was born, everyone around him has respected and adored him. Being openly challenged by someone beneath him naturally made him furious. And I, who had remained silent the whole time, finally chose to direct a bit of my attention towards Albert. He noticed my gaze and immediately restrained his expression, asking me in an absolutely gentle tone if I was scared. I broke free from his embrace, looking at him with a blank expression, and spoke. "Albert, you went too far with your words. Apologize." He stood frozen in place. As time and space turned, I suddenly remembered that long ago, he also used this cold tone to command me to apologize to Roxana. What was I feeling at that time? "Albert, did you experience it?" Chapter 17. The next encounter Roxana was on the day Freshman was released. The single-day box office broke 100 million, and the crew arranged a celebration banquet. I had a few drinks, My face was a bit red, and while going out for some fresh air, I accidentally caught a glimpse of the door to the next private room being ajar. Roxana stood among several men, dressed lightly, displaying a flattering smile, toasting each of them. Mr. Chen, Mr. Wang, Mr. Liu, are you all having a good time? I leave the matter of your return to you all. Mr. Chen pulled down her strap and stuffed a room card inside. The meaning was very clear, unspoken rules. Roxana accepted it gladly, seemingly accustomed to it. As she walked out of the private room with that group of men, she happened to make eye contact with me. I saw a flash of jealousy in her eyes very clearly. It was fleeting. It happened so quickly that I momentarily thought it was an illusion. After they left, I leaned against the railing, continuing to feel the breeze. The effects of the alcohol gradually hit me, and my head began to spin. Suddenly, a waiter stood beside me and said, "Miss, honey water. Honey water has a good effect on sobering up." But I didn't order it. The waiter pointed behind me and said, "That gentleman ordered it for you." I looked in the direction he was pointing, and Albert was standing under the kapok tree in the courtyard, smiling at me in a pleasing way. That smile was too pure. For a moment, I felt a bit dazed. It was as if I saw 16-year-old Albert smiling at me, when his eyes held only me. But I knew, this was 30-year-old Albert, not the person I loved most in my memories. I thanked the waiter but didn't drink that cup of honey water. Instead, I asked Helen for a hangover pill. Albert was taken aback, his expression lonely and hurt. Helen put her arm around my shoulder and asked gloomily, "Chloe, he follows you every day, watching you from a distance like a stone waiting for his wife. He has persisted for almost half a year. Why hasn't he given up yet?" I counted the days. Ever since that day when Oliver mocked Albert for being dumped, he seemed to be stimulated. During a media interview, he publicly declared, "I will definitely win back Chloe. She is the only wife in my life. Talking is not enough. Actions should not fall behind either." The young master, who has never touched a drop of water, personally cooked and delivered meals to me, not missing a single one, and his fingers got several blisters. I went to Hong Kong for an event, and he followed me there, extravagantly spending money at Victoria Harbour to set off a city of fireworks for me. I scolded him for being foolish, but he didn't care at all, still tirelessly chasing after me. I thought Albert would want to drag this out with me for a lifetime, but the change came so suddenly. It was a roadshow. I stood on stage answering fans' questions one by one, while Albert looked at me affectionately from the front row. Suddenly, a madwoman rushed out from the audience. Her face was utterly ruined, terrifying to behold. "You bitch. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, how could I have fallen to this state today?" Listening to the voice, it's an old acquaintance, Roxana. She employed the same old tricks, and after getting close to that Mr. Chen, she indeed received a few small advertisements. But Mrs. Chen has a bad temper and cannot tolerate any sand in her eyes. Upon learning of her existence, she sent someone to ruin her face. Having lost her beauty, her benefactor no longer protected her and drove her out. At this moment, Roxana should be blaming all the accounts on me. She pulled out a bottle of suspicious liquid from her bag and crazily splashed it towards me. "Chloe, go die." Her speed was too fast. I couldn't dodge in time and instinctively closed my eyes. However, the imagined pain did not come. Instead, I fell into a warm embrace. Albert unhesitatingly stood in front of me, and the sulfuric acid splashed all over his suit jacket, with a few drops hitting his face. He let out a painful groan. Sweat beads formed on his forehead. Yet he still smiled at me and said, "Chloe, don't be afraid. I'm here." I stared at him in a daze, tears streaming down my face. In the second before the pain overwhelmed me, Albert was still wiping my tears, saying, "What are you doing? I'm not dead yet. Don't cry. It hurts my heart to see you like this." The police car arrived quickly, and Roxana was taken back to the station. I accompanied Albert to the ambulance. Although he was in a coma, he still held my hand tightly and wouldn't let go. Helen rushed to the hospital upon receiving the news. Anxious and worried, and only breathed a sigh of relief when she confirmed that I wasn't hurt at all. I was so scared. Chloe, you have no idea how worried I was. Fortunately, Albert saved you. By the way, how is he doing now? I looked at the man on the hospital bed, wrapped in bandages. The doctor said that his arm, neck, and right side of his face have been corroded to varying degrees by sulfuric acid and will leave permanent scars. Helen sighed deeply. I couldn't bear to look away, my throat tight with emotion. The regrets and pains of the past seemed to suddenly be released in that moment. The last time I visited Albert, his mother was also there. The ward was very quiet. I glanced through the window and saw Albert taking a nap, so I didn't go in to disturb him. I placed the fruit I brought at the door and was just about to leave. Albert's mother called out to me, "Chloe, wait a moment." This was the first time she called me by my full name. In the past, she had disdainfully referred to me as an actor. I stopped in my tracks and turned around. She said, "Leave Beijing. Anywhere is fine. Just don't linger in front of Albert. He's stubborn and won't give up once he sets his mind on someone. I know that there are some things he has done wrong to you, but he is my only son, and the Law family has only this one heir. For the past 6 months, he hasn't even taken care of the company, following you around all day, and now he's become like this because of you. I do appreciate you, but let's be clear, I really don't want him to have any further connection with you. Do you understand?" I pondered for a moment and nodded. "I understand, Auntie." Walking out of the hospital, the kapok trees were in full bloom along the roadside. I recalled all the past I had with Albert, and then he sighed softly. From familiarity to estrangement, that is our story. Postscript. Albert, on the day he was discharged, he learned that Chloe was forced by her mother to leave the capital. Feeling both angry and anxious, he booked a flight to chase after her. But plans often go awry. On the way to the airport, he got into a car accident, a 3-car pileup. He was caught in the middle, with forces from both sides, and was seriously injured. By the time he fully recovered, it had already been 4 months. The patient in the next bed was watching the live broadcast of the 15th Sakura Film Festival Awards. He heard Chloe's voice. "Thank you to my agent Helen. Thank you to my boyfriend Oliver. Thank you to my fans." She held the golden, heavy trophy. Standing there, she was breathtakingly beautiful. Albert suddenly remembered, on a certain year, a certain month, a certain day. At that time, she was youthful and innocent, nestled in his arms, her eyes filled with dreams of the future. "Albert, when I win the Best Actress award, your mother will accept me, right? Then I will definitely work super hard. Just wait to marry me." Now she really has it, but the person by her side is no longer him.